Hello and welcome to today's Cognigy webinar that is all focused on two brand new additions to the Cognigy AI platform. First, this is the world premiere of Cognigy Insights, our newly developed and fully integrated Conversational AI Analytics Suite. You will see in our live demo how Cognigy Insights gives you intuitive access to all conversational KPIs, helps you understand user behavior, and optimize virtual agents and contact center processes. Second, we will introduce our inbuilt machine translation features. With this new capability, you can localize virtual agents faster than ever, you can translate interactions in real time, and also augment human agents with multilingual superpowers. Before we start, some words about Cognigy for those of you who are not yet familiar with our company and offering. Cognigy makes an automation platform that enables enterprises to easily create and operate AI-powered virtual agents to automatically handle calls and chats from customers and employees. As of today, we serve over 400 brands from all over the globe, among them leading companies like Bosch, Lufthansa, or BeyondTech. More than 500 million interactions are handled every year on our platform, and we are proud to have a network of over 100 partners and a community with thousands of trained developers. The heart of our offering is our software platform, Cognigy AI. It can serve highest enterprise requirements around conversational automation, and as a low-code platform, it places the power of creating virtual agents into the hands of business users. This results in a significant increase in customer satisfaction and cost savings across the enterprise. And with that, I'd like to hand it over and start with a deep dive into our latest addition, Cognigy Insights. Enjoy the demo.
Welcome to the presentation of Cognigy Insights, our new advanced analytics platform built directly into the Cognigy AI Conversational AI platform. Here at Cognigy, we are regularly running customer surveys and working with our customers to build the best conversational AI platform for their enterprises. In one of our last surveys, the most requested feature was advanced analytics capabilities. Our customers' bots are producing hundreds of millions of data points every year, and we were asked to extend our already existing analytics tools to help our customers make sense of all that data. What we discovered in follow-up conversations were essentially three challenges. The first one is accessing data. We've always made it easy to access Cognigy AI's analytics data, be it through the in-product dashboards or through integrations with, for example, Power BI, Tableau, Excel, or other tools for advanced analytics. The problem we discovered is that not all customers had the ability to access analytics data in those ways and wished for all the analytics data to be accessible directly in our platform. This led us to analyzing data. Even if customers had access to the data, it was up to them to make sense of it all. Why wasn't a specific intent performing as desired? Why was the drop-off rate higher on WhatsApp than on web chat? Which version of our checkout flow works best? So we've added tools to Cognigy Insights to help our customers derive insights directly from their conversational data. Last but not least, acting upon data. Insights are great, but only if they lead to action. Since Cognigy Insights is built directly into the Cognigy AI platform, it was a natural fit to establish close ties between the tools so that our customers can not just access and analyze their conversational data, but also immediately act upon the insights derived from it. Now, the great thing about Cognigy Insights is that it is connected to all the components of the conversational AI platform, and we can collect data from all these different components. We can collect data from the channel connectors, from the natural language understanding systems, from the process, so the Cognigy flows, from the integrations, so the extensions that live inside your Cognigy flows, and even from interactions with human agents through Cognigy Live Agent or other third-party tools. And all of this information is flowing together into the Cognigy Insights platform, where it can then be analyzed by you, our customers. We took it one step further, though. When we looked at the market, at existing conversational analytics tooling, we saw that it's mostly intent-based. And we found that intents don't really tell the full story. If someone speaks to, for example, an insurance bot and says, "Can you provide me with a quote?" the NLU system might detect a get quote intent. But then after that intent, a number of things are happening, but only 25% of the people that triggered that quote are actually getting to the goal of generating a quote in the end. The big question is why, and those existing tools that purely work intent-based just don't give you the right answer because they don't analyze what happens in between asking for the quote and actually not then finishing. Where is the drop-off point? So we're introducing a novel concept which we call conversation steps, because conversations are much more than just a series of intents. Steps can really be anything. A found intent can be a step. An answered question can be a step. A handover to an agent can be a step. Different A/B test variants which tell us which processes, words, etc. perform best can be a step. Or really, and that is super important, anything else. Because a conversation is not only what is visible to the agent or to the user. It is also the connections against your backend systems. Pulling data from Salesforce can be a step. Authenticating against a single sign-on provider can be a step. Making a HTTP request against some system can be a step. So we're getting a very fine granular view of what is actually happening inside a conversation. And with conversation step analytics, we can then discover true insights that go far beyond simple intent analytics. So if we look at the example from earlier again, where we saw, can you provide me with a quote? That is a step which is the get quote intent, just like we saw earlier. Then 100% of those customers get to the insurance type question. 95% finish those and get to the email step, but then only 25% get to the end goal, which is, in this case, issuing a quote. So we see there is an issue with the email question. Is it the way that we've worded it? Is it the validation that we've put in that validates it against the Salesforce system? Is it that we only allow Gmail addresses? It can be a number of things that are wrong with this. And with our new tooling, we enable our customers to exactly pinpoint the pain points, hone in on those, and fix those to, in the end, enable better conversion rates. And with that, I would say, let's take a look at Cognigy Insights. Now, before we jump into Cognigy Insights, let's take a quick look at the bot that we will actually be analyzing. Here we're in a Cognigy AI project, and the bot is a relatively simple bot. We can take a look here at the main flow. The main flow gives us some welcome message, and then depending on what we want to do, it helps us to get a quote, a human handover, or it just gives us a sorry, I don't understand message if it doesn't understand us. And the experience then essentially looks like this. A user is coming in. We get a welcome message. It says, how may I help you today? We can choose, for example, get a quote. What's your date of birth? So my date of birth here is actually August 26, 1981. I pick whether it's domestic or international, say international. And then it says, finally, please tell me your email address so we can forward you your contract. I need to, of course, pop in a valid email address. For example, this one. It shows me the quote, and then I can either want this quote ordered or not, and say I do. So that's essentially what the bot is doing and what we will be analyzing inside of Cognigy Insights. So now let's take a look at Cognigy Insights. You find Cognigy Insights on the sidebar under the Insights tab here. You click it and you get taken to the Insights application, which looks similar to Cognigy AI, just has different colors. We also have a sidebar which you can use to get to the different parts of the application. Here we find different dashboards, and we find the Step Explorer, the Transcript Explorer, and the Message Explorer, all tools which we will look at in the next couple of minutes. On the right side of the application, you find the user menu, which you can also use to get back to Cognigy AI, and you find the filters sidebar. The nice thing about the filters is that they will stay persistent no matter where you're moving in the application. So if we change the filter on the time frame to, for example, the last 30 days, no matter where we go in the application, whether to another dashboard or one of the other tools, the filters will stay persistent. So here we can play with the time frames that we want to analyze. We can select the endpoints we want to look at. So for example, maybe we only want to look at the web chat, and everything will automatically update. We can also do multiple selections where we select 2 endpoints, for example, to analyze the data from those endpoints together. We can select whether we want to look at the project view, so no snapshot, or whether we want to look at a specific snapshot which you might have in production. And of course, we can also play with locales. So we can say, I only want to look at the English locale, etc. We can at any point reset the filters and see the full dashboard again. So let's say we stay at the release snapshot data. So let's take a look at the dashboard. This is the overview dashboard where we see how many contacts are active right now. These are contacts that have interacted with our virtual agent in the last 15 minutes. How many conversations did we have in total in the period selected? So this year is 8,169 conversations. How many messages were understood that were received in that time frame, and how many positive ratings did we get? We see a time-based view of the conversations. We see the users split up by channel. Here the majority came through the REST channel. We can see our top intents and how often they had been triggered. We can see how many users came through which locale and what the top goals were. And we can see the top slots and the split between understood and misunderstood messages. This is a nice time view here, and you will be able to see that when we change the time frame to, for example, 7 days, the axis will automatically adapt, and now we're seeing a day view, whereas previously, for example, we saw a week view. Now looking at the dashboards, we can not just analyze the data on the dashboard here, but we can actually also download it as a CSV file, and we can download every data point as a CSV file to then analyze it in, for example, Microsoft Excel. Some tiles, like for example the understood messages one, also give us the ability to jump to different parts of the application, like for example here the intent trainer, because that is the tool we would use to improve that specific metric. Now looking at other dashboards, here we have the engagement dashboard. We see a couple of different number tiles up here. The number tiles always have the information that is the most important for that dashboard. How many goals were reached? What is the average conversation length? What is the maximum conversation length? And again, here in the engagement, how many positive ratings were triggered? We see how many live agent escalations were triggered. This here is 0 because we didn't really escalate on this setting. But you will be able to see how many conversations were actually handed over to a live agent or not. We can see top goals, we can see positive ratings over time. So if we make a change to our bot, we can see if we're getting more positive ratings from our customers. And again, the number of contacts. The third dashboard is the NLU performance dashboard. Here again, we see the number of, or the ratio of understood messages, but we also see the average execution time of our bot and how it varied over time. We also see our average intent score and the maximum intent score. And in addition, we have some extra tiles here, top intents, the top slots that were triggered, and my favorite new tile, the intents by score range. Now our intents are performing really well because they're all very close to the 1 score range here. Every intent score range shows you the maximum score that was hit by anyone that triggered that intent, the average score, and the minimum score. Now what that means is you want your average score to be as close to 1 as possible, and you want your range to be as small as possible. Because a big range can mean that you have a wide variation in the things that actually trigger that intent. And again, of course, we can go, for example, here to the intent trainer to fix phrases and to adapt the model so the model learns new phrases to then improve the performance of the NLU model in that way. Now those are the dashboards that come with Cognigy Insights. So let us look at some of the other tools, and we're going to start with the Step Explorer. The Step Explorer shows us how customers are moving through the conversation with a virtual agent. Everyone sees the welcome message after starting with the bot. And after the welcome message, 36% of people are triggering a quotation intent. 15% are triggering a premium, and 13% are triggering a location intent. Now what happens after the quotation? 80% make it through to the date of birth question, and then 100% through to the coverage question, and then only 51% are answering the email question. 24% at this stage are asking to speak to a human, and 23% are completely dropping off and leaving the conversation with a virtual agent. Now why is that? From here, we can right-click and go to the node to see maybe something is wrong with it. So we right click, we open Cognigy AI, and here we see the email question where we can see, it says email please. Maybe we should word that a little bit nicer. And maybe that then will increase our conversion rates and actually help people to get through to the final step, which is order confirmation here. We can drill in further and further into the flow and into the journey how customers are moving through. But we don't just have to start here at the starting step all the time. We could also say, I really just want to look at the quotations. And so here we start with quotation, and then we can go through it in that way. We can also say, okay, what happens after a handover? So maybe our agents are instructed not to hand the conversation back to the bot, so everyone is dropping off after this handover. Now this is interesting because if we choose handover here, we will see that all handovers together also always lead to a drop-off afterwards. But wouldn't it be interesting to see how did people get to a handover? And we can do that by changing the directionality of the Step Explorer. Currently, we have the forward-looking directionality, which means what happened after that step. So after the handover step, we have a drop-over. But how did we get there is what's interesting as well. So we can change the directionality to backwards, and here we can see, okay, 37% of people that asked for assistance by a human did so right away after the welcome message. 34% did so after the coverage question, and 28% did so after the FAQ premiums intent was triggered. So with that information, we can then see, okay, maybe we have to improve something that happens after the coverage question, which was the email no that we saw earlier. Or maybe we have to improve something about our welcome message because 37% of people that do trigger a handover, and in total here we can see also the total number, which is 87, do so right after the welcome message. So again, we can use this information here from the Step Explorer to see how can we improve our virtual agent with the information we're seeing here. Now going back to this and changing it to forward directionality, we can also see the drop-offs themselves. Now the drop-offs are interesting because the drop-offs can tell us a story of, okay, why did people not continue here? And to see that, we can right-click on the drop-off and go to our next tool, which is the Transcript Explorer. Now, when we do that, the Transcript Explorer is filtered, so we only see conversations where this drop-off happened, right? So we can see a full conversation here on the right side, a full conversation transcript, and we go through, and there's a date picker happening, and then we select the domestic or international insurance, and then here it says, finally, please tell me your email address, and there we have our drop-off. This might not tell us that much, but maybe it tells us, okay, this sentence is probably not that good. Now what we can also do is we can use the search bar to search through all the transcripts. So we can search for specific words. So we could say, okay, show me all the conversations that contain the word agent. And the steps that have that word included, or the messages that have the word included, are highlighted here in gray. So we can say, okay, here the word agent appears, here the word agent appears, and here the word agent appears again, right? So we can search for specific words. So if, for example, even if we get a support ticket and someone says, well, I spoke with your bot and I put in my booking code, which is ABC123, and then it didn't go through, we could go in here and we can search for ABC123 to then find that specific transcript and then search through that in that way. Of course, if you have activated it in the endpoint, we still support full GDPR compliance and you turning off the transcripts, etc. We don't just see the transcript, we also see information about the conversation. We see the conversation ID, we see when the first and last messages were sent, how many messages the user has sent, how many messages the virtual agent has sent, and how many messages the agent has sent, because we're tracking the messages that come through Live Agent as well, and you will be able to see them here in this view as well. We're tracking the rating and the comments, and we're tracking profile values if there are any profile values. So let me remove that here again, the filter, and find a conversation that has more steps, so one that probably finished like this one. Here we will then be able to see, okay, I actually got a rating, negative rating in this case. It says could have been better. And so we can search through that with the filters as well and say, okay, only show me conversations that had a positive or a negative rating. So again, we can analyze our conversations and see what can be improved in our virtual agent. Now from the Transcript Explorer, we can immediately go to the Message Explorer. We can either do that by clicking it here in the sidebar, or we can select a message in a conversation that we want to analyze a little bit more. So for example, we can click the user's message, just domestic, please. We can see the messages that the virtual agent said before that led to this output, input by the user, and what was said afterwards. Now, if we click on this message, we can essentially go through a conversation. We can say, okay, what are the things that users usually say after the bot says this? And what is the thing that was said before, right? So we can go through the conversation like this. And again, we can also search here. So we can say agent, for example. These are the user messages, and we can see another filter here. So if I click on this, we can see 1,616 times a user said, I need to speak with an agent. And 814 times of that, it was in reply to, finally, please tell me your email address. 130 times it was as a reply to email, please. Right? And then it says finding an agent for you. Now we can go through a conversation again in this way, when we can say, okay, what did the user say before the bot said, not sure I understood this correctly, right? We can say, oh, okay, it's no, or these things were said at points in the conversation where the bot would not understand that. So again, we can go from the Transcript Explorer, look at the individual transcripts, and then can see a view like this, a funnel view where we can see all the messages and learn from that to then go and improve our virtual agent in Cognigy AI from that. And that was Cognigy Insights. Let's take a quick look back at what we just learned. First, we have the dashboards. On the dashboards, you see all the KPIs that are interesting. They're instant. It's a real-time overview of what's happening with your bot and what has happened with different filters on locale, snapshots, and more. You can measure the engagement, the ratings that your virtual agent received, goals, etc. And you can, of course, export all the data as CSV. Then we saw the amazing Step Explorer, where we can see the journeys, so aggregated conversations that show us the journeys that users take through our conversational agent. And we can find out exactly where users are dropping off and look at the conversations that had this drop off in them in the Transcript Explorer. We can also use the reversible path analysis to not just see where do people go from a certain point, but also how did people get to a certain point, which allows us unprecedented insights into, okay, how did people get to a successful transaction? How did people get to a canceled transaction, right? How did people get to a handover to a live agent? And of course, there's a direct connection to the flow editor so that when we spot something that could be better, like for example, the email note that we saw earlier, we can go to the flow editor directly from the Step Explorer and fix the errors or mistakes or bad conversation design that we've spotted through the Step Explorer. And that is one of the big concepts here, right? We can use Insights and the tools in Insights, so the dashboards and the Step Explorer, but also the Transcript Explorer and Message Explorer to then optimize our virtual agent, optimize the natural language understanding, and optimize the conversation flows directly in Cognigy AI. So we saw we have the transcripts and the message funnels, and everything is, of course, still privacy aware, meaning you have the full privacy controls inside Cognigy AI, so you can stay GDPR compliant, HIPAA compliant, etc. So you still have all the redaction tools, etc. And they also all work with Cognigy Insights. Now, one thing we saw pop up throughout the presentation was the ratings. And we have now natively integrated user feedback for our web endpoint, so for the web chat, so users can give a thumbs up or a thumbs down rating. We don't just support thumbs up and thumbs down. We also support other quantitative metrics like NPS, for example, reactions, etc. And again, we've streamlined the experience in Cognigy Insights to identify friction points and then act upon them to be able to create the best experience for your customers.
That concludes the first part of this webinar. We're absolutely convinced that the new Analytics Suite is truly a game changer for conversational AI. We get overwhelmingly positive feedback from the sneak previews with beta testers and analysts, and we can't wait to hear from you which insights you will get from Cognigy Insights. We're now coming to the second part of the webinar, which is about integrated machine translation. Many of us, including myself, use machine translation almost on a daily basis to make our lives easier. We at Cognigy now bring the power of AI-based auto-translation right into your favorite conversational AI platform. Without further ado, let's take a look at this brand new feature in action.
Welcome to the presentation of Cognigy AI's new advanced translation capabilities, enabled by inbuilt real-time machine translation. Here at Cognigy, we're always working with our customers and partners on identifying opportunities to further enhance customer and employee service automation through the application of cutting-edge technology. In this case, AI-powered real-time translation capabilities. The majority of our customers are operating globally, meaning that their customers and employees speak multiple languages. That's why multi-language capabilities of virtual agents are so important, and why they picked an enterprise-grade platform like Cognigy AI in the first place. But even within single markets or countries, multi-language can be critical for accessibility and a low threshold for engagement, not just in markets like Switzerland or India. Cognigy AI is built from the ground up to work in multi-language scenarios. We have a natural language understanding system that supports over 100 languages, plus a generic model to support all the others that we don't have gold models for. We support full localization of flows and intent models with fallbacks, partial translation, local variations, truly enterprise-ready language operations. For example, we work with a large airline, and they are one of the most international companies in the world, and helped us understand the requirements for going global with conversational AI. Now, the truth is, there's really nothing that can't be done today with Cognigy AI when it comes to multilingual virtual agents. And in the past 12 months, we have not heard any requirement around multi-language that we could not serve with the standard offering. But there's a catch. What we found is that customers don't max out the possibilities they have with Cognigy AI when it comes to multilingual virtual agents. They don't offer their bots in 10 languages, even though they could. What keeps them back is not the technology, but the manual effort to create translations. And that's why we decided to invest into mechanisms to remove that bottleneck. And as an AI company, it's just natural to take a machine learning powered approach. To solve our customers' challenges, we've decided to fully integrate machine translation capabilities into the Cognigy AI platform. The translations are provided by one of 3 of the leading providers globally, Microsoft, Google, or DeepL, with more providers being added to the platform in the next coming months. The translation can be used not just in localizing your virtual agent, but also in translating conversations with virtual agents in real time into more than 90 different languages. And not just on chat, but also integrated, of course, with the Cognigy Voice Gateway, so you can also translate conversations on the phone lines. Now, with all of that, we enable 3 exciting new use cases. Firstly, there is a localization of existing content. Using machine translation, we can now let Cognigy AI pre-translate content for our editors and then go through it and fix it where needed. This works for content, but it also works for the machine learning models, where we support the full translation of example sentences and default replies at the click of a button. Secondly, we can deploy virtual agents in new languages within seconds by translating the conversations between users and virtual agents in real time, even with auto detection. So if a user speaks to our bot in Japanese, Cognigy AI will translate the Japanese back into the bot's language, run the natural language understanding, produce outputs from the flows, and back translate those outputs to Japanese. Through that, we can essentially deploy our virtual agent to more than 100 languages literally within seconds. And as I said, yes, this also works for phone calls. Thirdly, and most excitingly, this doesn't just work for bots. It also works for human agents. We can speak to an agent in our native language, even if the agent only speaks English. Just like with the bot or virtual agent, the inputs from the user will be translated to, for example, English for the agent to understand, and the agent's English answers are translated back into the user's language whilst keeping record of both for compliance purposes. And with that, I would say, let's take a look. So here we are in Cognigy AI and have a virtual agent for restaurants which lets us book tables, place orders, and more. We have 3 flows, and in the main flow here we can see some nice graphical content, etc. And if we try out the bot, we can see that we get a nice welcome message. Then here we get some options, make a reservation, etc. And we can go through the bot like that, pick a location, pick a date, etc., etc. Now this bot is currently only available in English. And what if we want to localize it? Now what we can do, we can go to the localization options and create a new locale. So let's say we want to localize it into German. We give the locale a name. This can be really anything. And then we pick an NLU language and a fallback locale. Now if we go back to the flow editor after creating the locale, we will see that we will now get the option to switch the locale, and we will see which nodes have already been localized. The localized ones have a color, and the non-localized ones are black and white. So we can see the say node has not been localized yet, and we can add a localization. Now if we haven't configured translation, we can only add an empty localization or copy from the US, from the NUS one in this case, and then we get a copy of the English one, and we need to manually translate this and then put it back into the say node and save it. Now I'm going to remove the localization, and we're now going to add the magic of machine translation to this flow. So in order to do that, we go to the agent settings, and at the bottom we'll find the translation settings where we can configure a translation provider, and we can choose from Microsoft, Google, or DeepL, and here we're going to choose Microsoft, which I pre-configured. We can bring our own API key, and we can put in some settings for request retries, etc. And very importantly also caching. How long do we want the translation to be cached for, so that the same phrases don't have to be shot at the translator over and over again, causing extra cost. Now as soon as we have configured a translation provider, we're getting extra options in the flow editor. So let's go back here and let's localize this one again. Now we're getting a menu, add translated localization, which gives us the option to choose the locale to translate from and the language to translate from, so in this case English, and to translate to. We press confirm, and we get a localized node that has been fully translated automatically, and we can now go in and just fix that up. This works for all types of say and question nodes. So you can see here we have a node with quick replies, for example, and this one is now also fully translated, and that happened just within essentially a second. Now this doesn't just work for nodes, but it also works for intents. We can localize intents in the same way that we can localize nodes by going to an intent. So here we have an intent with a number of example sentences and a default reply which contains 2 cards. And here we can now go add a localization, and we get the same menu that we got before. We confirm, it translates all the example sentences and the default reply for us. Now, of course, we can do this one by one, or we can actually have bulk localization as well by clicking here and choosing to translate from another locale, and then we get the same menu that we got before, and this will then actually localize all intents for us. Now let's talk about real-time translation. This is the type of translation where we don't have to pre-translate everything, pre-localize everything, even if it's assisted with machine translation, but where the translation engine translates the conversation as it is happening. Now in Cognigy, we deploy virtual agents through so-called endpoints. Here we have a web chat endpoint, it links to the main flow, and if we go and talk to that web chat, we're going to then have a chat with this restaurant virtual agent that we've seen earlier. Welcome to Cognigy Eatery. How may I help you? Okay, make a reservation, and then it's asking us where, etc., etc. Right? So I can even write something like tomorrow night at 6 p.m., for example, and that is still going to work. Now, what if we want to make this chat available in another language? For that, all we have to do is go back to the endpoint editor and activate real-time translation, which we find under the real-time translation settings. In here, we can enable the translation and select a user language. So we could select, for example, I don't know, Chinese. We save, we open the web chat again, and now we're assuming that the language that is being typed in is Chinese. We can actually use any language we want to trigger the bot here. And the bot content is being translated in real time, as is the NLU. Now we can say make a reservation in Chinese, as we can see. And we can now have this whole conversation, including full localization of everything, yeah? Including here the month and the dates, the days of the week, etc. Everything in Chinese, and it fully works. We cannot just have a pre-selected language, but we can also say auto-detect. And when we say auto-detect, we have an extra setting, set user input language on execution count. So we can say whatever language the user is using on their first input is the language that the bot will use from then on. Let's take a look at that. Now we've just configured the endpoint to detect the language from the first user input. So if I come in and I type something in Danish, the system will detect that I did say something in Danish and will now output everything in Danish as well. And I can now, of course, use the buttons, or I can also type something in Danish. Like, for example, I want to make a reservation, and the system will now fully work in Danish and let me make a reservation in that way. This now works with any language that the translator supports. So if I come in and, for example, start off in Japanese, saying konnichiwa, I'm going to get a Japanese output. And now I can also, for example, here make a reservation in Japanese. Right? As you can see, I can pick Düsseldorf and I can pick the date, and again, everything is localized into Japanese. So that is a way where we can, on the one hand, auto-detect the language from the user inputs. But what we could also do is we could inject the language from the front end, right? So we could, for example, say, if the language that the browser is using is Japanese, then automatically set it to Japanese, or give the customer a choice. Say in Japanese, would you like to continue in Japanese, and then write in English, because you can tag parts of the sentence not to be translated. You could say, oh, would you like to continue in English, and give the user 2 buttons to then choose from, right? Now, the great thing is that all of this doesn't just work on chat. It actually works for all of our endpoint types. So we could, for example, create a voice gateway endpoint, point that also at the main flow, and we will see that in the settings for this, we now also have the real-time translation settings. So if we configure a bot on the Cognigy voice gateway to use, for example, I don't know, Bulgarian or Czech speech-to-text, or ASR, then that will also be translated into English. The bot is run on English, and then it comes back and is back translated into that language and then output by the TTS engine. So yeah, it doesn't just work on chat, it works on actually all our endpoints, of which there are, of course, many to choose from, and that makes it an extremely powerful feature to super easily roll out your bots in more than 100 different languages, pretty much at the click of a button. But that isn't everything. Because with Cognigy AI, you can not just real-time translate a conversation between a user and a virtual agent, but you can also real-time translate a conversation between a user and a human agent. Now let's take a look at that. If we go back to our web chat, I'm now pointing it at a different flow. This flow essentially just repeats what I just said, or when I say handover, hands the conversation over to a human agent. In the real-time translation setting, I've set up this endpoint to expect German inputs from the user, and the handover flow and the agent, in this case, will speak English. Now I'm going to open this up and open our Cognigy Live agent with the web chat side by side. So here on the left side, we have Cognigy Live agent. On the right side, we have the web chat that has been configured to expect German inputs. So if I, for example, say Guten Tag, which means good day, it's going to come back and say, Sie sagten Guten Tag. If I say SDF, it's going to come back and says, Sie sagten SDF. So now if I say, well, I want to speak to an agent, so I'll say handover. We can see the handover being triggered in Cognigy Live Agent over here. And I can take this discussion, and here I can see the things the user said, translated into the language of the agent. And here I can say what went back to the user, also translated into the language of the agent. So the agent can see what happened. Now you can see we have the German conversation here. We have the English conversation here. I can now say something like, how may I help you, for example. And the user will receive, wie kann ich Ihnen helfen? For example, which means, how may I help you? So maybe I could say, ich möchte mein Ticket umbuchen, which means I would like to rebook my ticket. And we can see that this now here actually appears exactly like that. What is your booking number? So we can have a discussion, the agent can have a discussion in English, and the user sees everything in German or any of the other 100 plus languages that we do support through the translation, right? And we can now resolve this, and then here we are now back with the bot as we were before. Now let's just think about what we've seen here for a second. Of course, from a technological perspective, it's already amazing, right? We are translating in real time. It goes from the bot towards the agent. Everything is handled by Cognigy AI. But think about it, what it means from a business perspective. From a business perspective, it means that you don't have to have agents that speak 100 different languages. You can concentrate on your core markets and have agents that speak 1 or maybe 2 different languages, maybe 3 different languages, but that's it. But you could still service customers in more than 100 different markets around the world, right? That is amazing customer service enabled by Cognigy AI. And the best thing is, it doesn't just work with Cognigy Live Agent. It works with any other live agent system that you might have. May it be a Genesis, may it be a live person, may it be a Ring Central. You can plug Cognigy in the middle and it will act as your real-time translation provider also for these other third-party contact center systems. Now coming back here, let's take a look at what we just saw. First, we looked at localizing existing content. So using machine translation to support us in localizing existing virtual agents into different languages. And not just the content of the virtual agents, but also the intents. Right? We can pre-fill it with auto-translated content and fine-tune it later, leading to approximately 50% or more time savings for localizations from a primary into a secondary language. Then we looked at real-time translation. That is a live translation during a conversation of voice or text-based virtual agents. So the user speaks in one language, it is translated into the virtual agent's language, the NLU is run, the Cognigy flows are run, and the outputs are then back translated into the language of the user. We also have optional auto detection of the input language with smart settings so that we can say, okay, whatever the language is that the user spoke in first is going to be the language that we will be using afterwards. This allows for a one-click rollout into new markets and audiences without the need for manual content creation. Last but not least, we saw live agent augmentation, the real-time translation of human-to-human interactions. Now what that means is that you could even use Cognigy without using virtual agents at all. You could place Cognigy in between a web chat widget and a human chat application, which could be the Cognigy Live Agent application as we saw, but it could also be a Genesis, a live person, a Ring Central. It will work with all of these immediately out of the box as well. Right? And that essentially gives you human agents linguistic superpowers, because now all of a sudden your agents, despite only speaking English, can speak to customers in more than 100 different languages. Now, many of you might be asking, how good is the quality? Right? And we actually benchmarked the quality of Microsoft, Google, and DeepL also against others and found them to be surprisingly or amazingly good. And the real question isn't how good is the quality? Is it sufficient? I think the real question should be, what is best for the customer? Now, if we have the budget and time to localize a bot, properly localize it into a secondary or third language, fine, we should do that. But what is better for, say, someone from Thailand who might not speak English? to have an English bot that doesn't help at all, or to have a Thai bot that may or may not once in a while get a phrase wrong. Right? The second one will of course be much more useful to that person, regardless of whether it's sometimes wrong or not, because they will still be able to get done whatever they want to get done. So the strategy we will propose is to localize your virtual agents into your primary or main market languages using maybe the assisted machine translation capabilities that we have. And then for all the other markets where your customers are, you can use the real-time translation or, of course, the agent augmentation as well. Now, what you would learn from that is in which regions are the bots being used the most, right? So if you have a real-time translation on for a specific market or for, let's say, 10 different specific markets, after a while, you will be able to tell which have been used the most, so you can then take that one and properly localize that one to get an even higher quality.
We hope you enjoyed watching our presentation today and that you are as excited about the new features as we are. If you are already a Cognigy customer and you are working with a cloud instance of Cognigy AI, we will automatically activate Cognigy Insights and the machine translation feature for you in the next release of the software. Our on-premises clients will be able to use the new features after updating their installation to version 4.10. Whatever your deployment is, the new capabilities are provided at no extra cost. If you are not yet a Cognigy AI user, please be invited to log into our free trial environment under cognigy.com/trial, where you will be able to test the new capabilities right after their release. Finally, if you have questions or if you want to share your feedback, please reach out to us directly or join our Cognigy community for an open discussion about any topic that matters to you. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.